What's up, guys? Mike here from Ekim Knives, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about electronics in the knife shop and what you can do to help them survive a little longer. Now, this is often overlooked, and this is by myself included. We all do it. I've seen a lot of shop tours. I know a lot of you guys are doing it too. We just grind away and don't think much of the metal dust that we're kicking up. So naturally, when you grind a knife, you're grinding metal, you're shooting all this conductive material into the air, right? I'm sure you can kind of guess where I'm going with this now. Now, just like regular household dust or whatever dust is made of, skin cells, I heard. Ugh. And if you don't believe me that you have dust, go check the top of your ceiling fan. I'm sure you'll find some somewhere. And even the best dust management solutions really only help slow it down. It still gets everywhere. So we have to take some other measures to prevent dust from screwing up our day, essentially. And I was reminded of this just the other day when I was working on something, and the conductive metal dust got in this guy. Now, this might look familiar. This is the Tico FM50, and what these both are, right here that you see before you, is they're variable frequency drives. So this is the one I was using to run my surface grinder. So it takes household 110 volt current, converts it into 220 volt three-phase current, and it'll run those big motors. Just like this one might look familiar because this is typically what most knife makers will use on their 2x72 grinders. I have a bigger version of this on my grinder right behind me. And there's a good reason why they use these. Now, these two right here are exactly the same thing functionality-wise. So they're both rated for 1 horsepower motors. They do exactly the same thing. Speed controls for those motors and convert to 3-phase power. So what's the difference? Well, before I get into that, I'm going to tell you guys why this one was an issue, and if you have something like this, what you can do to help it. So I'm working on the mill on the other side of the shop on this side, and this is mounted up on this side of the shop. The machine's not even running. But it was on. It was plugged in. It was on. The little readout was reading 0. And then I hear a sizzle. I smell some smoke, and the little pop. Uh-oh. Right. So I run over. I unplug it, and sure enough, that wonderful burnt smell. So I'll roll in a quick picture here to show you guys when I open this up what I saw. And as you can see, it's a burnt out electronic component of sorts. And if you look at the top of this drive, it's vented. It has a little exhaust fan. So this is not protected at all. And I thought I would be safe. I spoke to them on the phone when I got it, and they said, yeah, it's a little dust sensitive, but as long as you're not killing it with dust, it should be all right. Okay, so I kept it... Excuse me. So I kept it as far away from the grinder as I could, and I mounted it back on the wall, and I would periodically blow it out with a compressor to not let the dust collect. So, needless to say, it lasted almost a year, and that dust eventually got in there and shorted out the components. And if you're lucky like me, this $130 drive is now garbage. Right? That's lucky. If you're not lucky, imagine if I wasn't home and that just kept on smoking and sizzling and popping. Guess what? Your shop burns to the ground. And what if your shop is connected to your house? You're in your garage. Now what? Right? All because you didn't do something to prevent that metal dust from getting in there. So if you have one of these, what can you do? Obviously, you can't block those vents. It'll overheat and you'll smoke it anyway. But what you can do is buy an enclosure for it, or make one. So you could even go out and get one of those plastic shoebox type totes and make an enclosure, just something to keep the dust out. Right? Maybe drill some holes in the bottom to let it breathe a bit, but just something, which is what I should have done. So learn from my mistakes as usual. So now this $130 drive is garbage, so we'll put that aside, and this is its replacement. This is what happens when you buy cheap the first time. So, like I said, this is pretty much the same thing, except this is what they call NEMA 4X rated. So, all that means is it comes in this fancy enclosure, right? So here's all your electronics and everything, and this sturdy metal case that's got the gaskets and everything to keep moisture and dirt. I mean, they say you can hose this down with a garden hose while it's on and it'll be fine. Not that I'm going to try it, but that's what they're for. So, if you haven't bought a drive yet, if you're going to buy an old machine or even a grinder, you're making one, buy a good drive. And if you do go for the cheaper drive like this Tico here, it'll do the job, but make sure you protect it somehow. Don't learn the hard way like I did. And certainly, you don't want a fire in your shop. Now, it's not limited to just these electronics. It's everything in the shop. My radio lately, and I'll spin you around so you can see it. My radio up there has been giving me issues. And this is pretty new. I got it for Christmas. So I'm thinking that metal dust is getting in there. The volume now self-adjusts and it's starting to act really odd. So I'm going to open that up and make sure that I'm taking every precaution I can. Oh, sorry for the shaking. I'm going to open it up and make sure I'm taking every precaution I can to prevent the metal dust from getting in there and burning my shop down. You know, my father, I was talking to him about this earlier today, and he was an environmental engineer when he worked. He's retired now. And aside from the fire risks and the loss of money and time and electronics and all that, his first response was, you know, if it's doing that to electronics, so what do you think it's doing to your lungs? And you know what? He's right. And not to beat a dead horse, because you knife guys, you all know that every time you don't wear one of these, you're asking for it, right? I've done it. I'm guilty of it. You know what? It's one of those, you don't see short-term effects, so you ignore it. And then when it's too late, you're like, oh, geez, I wish I would have wore it. So I'm going to try and be more proactive about this and this. So, just a little public service announcement, guys. I know I didn't make a video last week, and I come back with this boring one. So, I'll do something fun. I'll figure something out. A lot of you guys wanted to see a sharpening video, another one. I haven't done one in a while on how to sharpen primarily on the grinder. So, from no edge to razor sharp right off the grinder. So, once I have a knife to sharpen on it, I'll do that for you. So, that's it for this one, guys. I'm not going to bore you to death, and I'll get right on making the other one. So, that's it for this one. This is Mike here from Ekim Knives, and I'll catch you on the next video.